And I can almost guarantee you the majority of women, just regular women, do not want to be masculine.
No.
They want a man that allows that structure, because what is masculine? Well, let's define what that masculine end of the spectrum is. The ability of setting boundaries, the structure, the solid rock. Mm-hmm. And when you have that end of the spectrum in a relationship, that will allow the woman to be more feminine. And what is the femininity? Feminine essence is creativity, is free-flowing aliveness, is being able to, pleasure and enjoying life. And I think that as a man in today's society, we do have to kind of integrate more of that masculine essence.
We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 Strength and Health Authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode.
We're no doubt into part 2 of this episode, so which is fun. I love chopping up these long conversations into 2 parts, so we can save the best for last. This attack that's on men, that has been kind of gaining momentum, I would say, over the last few years especially. And the term, obviously, toxic masculinity has been used quite a bit, but I almost feel like the word toxic's not even necessary anymore. If people just hear masculine or masculinity or manly or men, it has negative connotations, which is absurd. What are your thoughts on this? Someone that is, we're roughly 18 years different in age. I'm 47, you're 29. So that's like 2 different generations, right? I'm not saying I could be your daddy, but I'm just saying, no, there's a different mindset. Yeah. I'm on the verge of 50 and you're not quite 30. So it's just, I'm married with children and you're still sniffing your 20s, right? So, what's your perspective on this? Like, how do we see the world right now when it comes to this particular topic?
I think it's useful to actually be able to look back and see why it got to the way it is now.
Yeah.
And I think the world works with the pendulum, right? I think that as time goes on, pendulum swings to one extreme and then another extreme. And I think if you look back in recent history, I think men have had a lot more liberties and freedom and been able to, assert themselves a lot more than women.
Yes.
And I think that because of that, the feminist movement was born. And I think in the beginning, it had pure connotation, right? Equal rights for women, equal voice, like make them as much of a citizen as men.
Yes.
But then as time went on and as, we got really comfortable in the West and we didn't really have the need for strong masculine men, we see the old ways of masculinity and we labeled it as toxic because we see masculinity as that stereotypical, cold-hearted, cocky individual who, subjugates women and is only out for himself and all that. And then that is the term masculinity in today's age. That's what we think of is a cold-hearted person who is just out for themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that, there's different agendas at power that kind of want to control society because where there's control, there's power. And if you want to control a society, you kind of have to depower the biggest threat.
Yes.
The biggest threat is young men, especially young men who are restless, who have this inner fire, this need to, explore, to take risks, to conquer in whatever way that they want to assert themselves in the world. And that's a threat. And so in today's age, you see all of that being villainized and you see, and I think there's some truth to the idea of, as a man, you need to, be in more touch with your emotions and kind of, get in touch with your feminine side. I think that the pendulum swung way too far where now boys are becoming more like girls and there's a a need to equalize everything and kind of level out the playing field.
And almost a push for young girls to become more masculine.
Yes, and that's where we talk about feminism, and people say it's female empowerment. I totally disagree with the modern day feminist as being about female empowerment. It's actually disempowering women, because what it's actually saying is, women, you need to be more like men in order to be strong.
In order to be better women.
In order to be better women, you need to say, screw motherhood. That's like, that's very limiting.
That's old. Yeah.
That's limiting for women. Like, you need to go out there and you need to be more like a man, be more assertive, be more powerful, be more, in the world and CEOs and create businesses. And hey.
You know who was strong? My mom.
Yeah.
Okay? Who raised 3 boys with an alcoholic husband who was abusive. My dad. And my dad had a lot of good redeeming qualities, but my mom was a badass. She was tough. She was loving. She was there. And she was as much one of the strongest human beings I've ever met in my entire life. And she was all woman all day long. And she was, and obviously I'm biased. It was my mom. She's no longer here. I wish she was. But there was absolutely zero wrong with the way she lived her life. She was loved by many people. She was not a judgmental person. She was one of the most kind-hearted, sweet people on the planet, loyal, and she, I don't know. Why is that being lost? Why is that not a good thing? Why is that being, not being a strong woman? Absolutely it is. It's 100% being a strong woman. I don't think you can become, and don't take this the wrong way, listeners. Listen, if you're have no interest in having children, or you're not capable of having children, then I feel for you. But I think what makes you a more well-rounded human being, man or woman, I think is when you level up as an adult, when you have your offspring, when you have children. And I think you're not the woman you're capable of becoming if you don't go through motherhood. That's just my personal experience and I don't know. What's your thought on that?
So, yeah, going off of that, I think we're focused now too in this of gender.
Yes.
Like, we've added all these, all the genders and all that.
Get this straight. Strong by design, there's 2 genders. Yeah. There's men and women.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's not even talk about gender. Let's talk about, instead of man, woman, let's say masculine and feminine.
Yes.
And it's a spectrum. All right. It's not like black and white, you're masculine or you're feminine. I like to think of it as a spectrum. One end is the most masculine, the other end is the most feminine. And all men and women fall somewhere in this line of the spectrum, right? Men tend to fall more into the masculine end, women more into the feminine end. And I think for any relationship to work, man, woman, even same-sex relationships, there has to be that polarity of masculine, feminine. And a lot of times it's like, the masculine man and the feminine woman come together and create, the best relationship ever. Mm-hmm. The problem is, in a lot of relationships today, is that men aren't really embodying their masculine because they're not taught. Because the way that a boy learns to be a man is from other men. But what does the boy do when he hasn't grown up with a good father? What does the boy do when there's no father? Then who does he look up to? Usually the men around him. What if there's nothing there? It's society. Yes. And what does society tell a boy that a man is? Well, if you look at the modern TV shows, they show the father as the bumbling idiot. The woman has to be the man in every depiction of a father. And, society will then morph the boy's mind into teaching him what it is to be a man. And so then when you get older and you have a relationship, man, woman, the man's not in his masculine. He's probably more in his feminine. What does the woman have to do then?
She has to compensate.
Has to compensate and be more in her masculine. And I can almost guarantee you the majority of women, just regular women, do not want to be masculine.
No.
They want a man that allows that structure, because what is masculine? Well, let's define what that masculine end of the spectrum is. The ability of setting boundaries, the structure, the solid rock. And when you have that end of the spectrum in a relationship, that will allow the woman to be more feminine. And what is the femininity? Feminine essence is creativity, is free-flowing aliveness, is being able to, pleasure and enjoying life. And I think that as a man in today's society, we do have to kind of integrate more of that masculine essence. But then there's also the spectrum of masculine, feminine energies within us as an individual. Right? So that's where it's like, okay, be more in touch with your feminine side. What does that actually mean? It means like once you embody the masculine, what does that mean? I believe it's getting in touch with your physical body, doing something with your hands, whether that's, working out, using your body, doing some kind of something that connects you with the physical world. That's also another step is being more creative. Creativity, I believe, is more of a feminine essence, so that a man has to connect with that.
Yes.
Right? Because as a woman, you have the most creative ability by creating life.
That's
You
right.
literally create life, which is the highest form of creativity there is. As a man, we don't have that. So we have to satisfy that by creating in the world, creating whatever it is you want to create, business, creating, being a welder, creating art, creating something. There's no coincidence that the greatest inventors, most of the greatest artists were all men, because they had this innate drive to create, because a woman doesn't necessarily have that as much. I'm speaking in general terms. Obviously,
Yes.
there's outliers, but a woman connects with that creative process through creating life.
Yeah.
So as a man,
Through the nurturing process,
Yeah.
right? Through motherhood, through caretaking, through doing things that men oftentimes are incapable of doing, okay? When my children first wake up in the morning, what's the first thing they say if I wake them up? Is mommy here? Where is mommy? What can I guarantee you they're saying or they're not saying when my wife wakes them up?
Where's daddy?
They don't ask that. Why? Because mommy is something extra special, okay? That's who gave them life. And you cannot, there's something between a mother and their child that a man will never be able to, right? When you think you love both your parents, right? But your mom's your mom.
Yeah.
There's just something there about why. Dude, you came from her. Right? She fed you. She took care of you in a way that the dads, sure, were part of the process, but we're the provider protectors. We're going out into the world. We're bringing back. We're providing for them. They're the ones that are, and it's just by design. It just is. Why does it fit so well? Why does Velcro have two parts, right? Right? You don't stick the two hard crusty parts together or the two fuzzy parts together, right? Why does Velcro work so well? It's because it's the
complementary.
They're complementary.
Yin and yang.
Yeah, positive, negative, right? They're polarizing. And if we lose that as a culture, thinking that we can just blend it and we're all just one and we're the same and there is no difference, that confusion is scary.
Yeah.
And it's false. It's not truth anymore. And we need more truth seekers, and we need people speaking truth and being bold and standing in truth more. And we need more guys like you, right? We need the masculine. I'm sure you looking around at other men in their late 20s, early 30s, are you seeing a shortage, a short supply of guys who are willing to step into their manhood? Or do they seem lost to you?
I would say I see a majority of men my age lost and kind of depressed and in a state of kind of numbing out the pain that they feel from not living on their edge. Because as a man, especially a young man, I think you need to live on your edge. Yeah. Whatever that means for you, I do think that you need to be uncomfortable at certain times because you're pushing to the limit. And I don't mean pushing in the limit at the gym all the time. We talked about that. But I'm talking about in your life, like extending out your borders of comfort.
Exploration.
Yeah. I think that, and if you're not living on your edge, if you just have a job where you're working for someone, a basic job, and then it's like, okay, I did my job, I got my paycheck, I go home, I watch Netflix, I watch porn, I play video games. That is one of the biggest reasons why men are being disempowered.
That's right.
Is because they're not creating, they're not living on their edge, they're not physical with their bodies. They do a dumb dead-end job that they really hate, soul sucking,
Yep.
and then they numb out the pain they feel with substances, with entertainment that's just numbing their minds, making them dumb. With, I think, the most destructive thing on all levels is porn.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that is one of the reasons men are lost.
And not having conversations like this with other men.
Right. And being scared to, because there's the cancel culture.
Yes.
Where it's like, oh yeah, you'll get canceled if you start, so then they just kind of mute themselves, they quiet their minds, they let society tell them what it is to be whatever and then they just numb themselves out. Mm-hmm. And then just to go back to like the father-mother dynamic, I think, in my opinion, whether a boy or a girl, the beginning of the life is most important that they have a connection with their mother. Like the mother is the one to nurture them when they're young. And then as a boy or a girl begins to get a little older, then it's time for the father to step in.
The boundary setter, kind of.
Setting the boundaries.
More of the disciplinarian.
Yes, but also teaching boys how to be a man.
Yes.
But then also teaching girls how to relate to masculine energy. Because, I've been in relationships in the past with a woman who didn't have a dad.
Yep.
And, it's a very different dynamic where, she'll look to you as the man to be kind of that father figure, but then you're also her boyfriend, so it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
So I think for a woman, it's important to have a good, strong father, because then that masculine frame, she knows how to relate to the masculine frame.
Yeah.
Same thing with a boy. I think a boy needs to have the father figure so then he can relate to the masculine frame. It's also important for the mother so he can relate to the feminine frame. But the father importance comes later on in life for a child.
Yeah.
Whereas in the beginning, it's all mother. Obviously the father should be there and connect with the kid, but his real role as a strong father, in my opinion, is later on in life.
Yeah.
And the problem is, if you're not a strong man on your own, you're not going to be a good father.
That's right.
I think that, you have to use your 20s, your 30s, however, whatever your schedule of life is, to develop that masculine frame, set boundaries within your own life, to live on your edge, to go out and explore, to conquer, to push whatever your field is to the limit, to be able to do that. Because, I think that, society will say otherwise, but I think the majority of men and the majority of women, well, I won't even say the majority of men, say the majority of women, their ideal situation, is to be a stay-at-home mom. I know that's like very disempowering for some women to hear.
Some women they're on this planet because motherhood to them is like, that's their path.
Yeah.
That's what they want. They've always wanted a big family, or they've always wanted children. They've always wanted to teach and love and nurture and do all of these things. And now it's not for everybody. And it's like, my wife wants to have a career, but she also loves being a mom. Now, does she need breaks here and there? Is she overwhelmed here and there? Absolutely. Aren't we all? She's a human being. But motherhood to her, like sitting on the sofa with her two kids, like on a day where we maybe don't have baseball or dance or activities of some kind for our kids, I can see it in her face. Like, that feels really good to her, right? She has the two things, like, besides me, hopefully, that she cares about the most in this world, right, up against her, and it just makes her feel great. It makes her feel, and I know that's how my mom always felt when all of her boys, me and both my older brothers, were visiting. My mom would light up like a Christmas tree when we would all be there together with our wives and stuff. And once we started having kids and we would all come and congregate for holidays and stuff, you could see joy oozing from my mother because it made her feel like fulfilled. Mm-hmm. This is why I'm here. I'm here because I can feed them. I can love on them. And the joy in her face. And she got this. And, I'll say one more thing. Her dad, my grandpa, Homer was his name, Homer Ensslin, very German. And he was one of the coolest, strongest, awesomest dudes on the planet. And I have no doubt, like, that is what helped make my mom, like, such a good, strong, amazing human being. I love my grandma, too, little Hannah, right? Homer and Hannah. Big, over 6 foot dude with like a teeny little 5 foot, grandma was just this little thing. And I would love seeing them go at it after each other and stuff. But, she had good structure to grow up with. And absolutely, that's what helped mold her into such a great human being. And you'll never convince me otherwise that that's not what we need. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that don't have that, as we've talked about. The family structure is being eroded in this country. But some of the finest people I meet, not that there aren't exceptions, there are, but some of the finest people I meet usually come from a home with a mom and a dad, where they're more complete people, I think. Their purpose in this world, and I think they were cared for and given a life that they needed to max out and to really hit their stride and their potential, I think, as young adults coming out of not a broken home, but a home of love and support and the masculine and the feminine together. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I'll never be dissuaded from that. I just won't.
It's the natural way of things, Yeah. Just like you said, our society is kind of devaluing that family unit, telling, like if you look at like a lot of the, younger, especially, it doesn't even matter, boys, girls, the college phase, hookup culture, kind of like, just have as much sex, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I think that is then relating to people not wanting families. And I'm not saying you need to have a family young, like I'm, waiting until the right time. Right. But like that is a very important part in your maturity, and it's being devalued. And then guess what? Because we live in a hookup culture surrounded by options and dating apps and all this, you have a baby with someone, you love them for this, but then like 6 months later, you're like, oh, but there's all this. And then you break up, and like divorce is taken so lightly.
Oh my gosh.
So everyone
better than half of people who are married are divorcing.
It's like 80% or in 7. So I don't know the statistic, but like
it's better. It's over
crazy.
50. I'll tell you that much. It's really sad. And then, the people that get divorced with young children breaks my heart. With kids, multiple kids under the age of like 8 and even younger sometimes. I'm like, dude, I mean, I get it, guys. Things are hard. Things are tough. I'm not going to say it's been easy. I have an 11 and almost 8-year-old. And my wife and I have had our moments, but separation's never like an option. It doesn't enter the conversation or our minds. Those are feelings. And I think you're pretty smart on this stuff too. Feelings come and go, and feelings will lie to you. In a moment, you will think that this decision, in a not a good state of mind, is the right decision. And all it takes is about an hour or maybe a day to realize, well, I'm glad I didn't do that, because that would have been about the dumbest thing I could have ever done. And don't act on feelings all the time.
And that's where I really like the philosophy of stoicism.
Yeah.
People don't understand stoicism. They just think of like someone being stoic, not feeling emotions.
Right. Like they just like have a wall up, like they don't have any emotion.
Yeah, and that's actually not it at all. I like the philosophy of stoicism because it says you feel your emotions, you never reject them, because if you reject them, they'll fester and then manifest themselves in some other way downstream. But you feel the emotion, you kind of like analyze it, you feel through it, you say, is this useful now? Is it like, what is the point of this? Why am I feeling this? And then you just kind of like let it go, and then you allow yourself to be more rational in that moment.
Clear-headed.
Yeah, and then you look, maybe it's the facade of like being nice and stoic and not letting your emotions, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like I do believe in being vulnerable and being emotional in the right settings. Like a man should cry if it feels the need to. Doesn't mean he needs to cry in front of everybody, but like you integrate your emotions in your way without repressing, without rejecting. But like when you show up to the world, especially in a dynamic with your woman, she does rely on you to be that masculine frame. And it's okay to soften up here and there, but like if you soften up too much, she's going to harden up. Like if a man softens up too much with his woman,
that's right,
it's going to cause her to harden up because
always this
that polarity.
Balance. Yeah, it's always this
yin
balance.
yang. Yep. If you're a man too much in your yin, then the woman is going to compensate by being in her yang, and that is a recipe for resentment. That is a recipe for a failed relationship. So I think a man needs to integrate more of the masculine, but also not be so, let's say the word toxic masculinity. In my opinion, what toxic masculinity is someone who is so far on the end of the spectrum, rejecting emotions, resisting them, kind of not really having integrity with who they are, not allowing themselves to flow in the feminine, because if you flow in the feminine, that's where the creativity's at. If you have the structure, then you can allow, I like to think of it like the masculine is the frame and the feminine is the picture, the artwork. So you have to have that frame as a man in order to support all those around you, women, or, even your male friends.
Yeah.
But then allowing yourself, not just your woman, not just allowing the structure for your woman to be feminine, but allowing the structure for you to be feminine, to be creative, to be more in touch with your inner landscape, your emotions, but then not allowing that to become, the main essence of what you are. You need that frame, that structure, and then you can fully embody and be that integrated human. Whereas toxic masculinity, in my opinion, is just the frame, no free flowing, no creativity, just like I think that is my definition of what the term toxic. I don't like that term because like you could say anything is toxic. I'm now, my next long form YouTube video is going to be toxic positivity. Right. Like how always putting on a face and saying, yeah, don't worry about it, look at it on the bright side and all that is actually very detrimental to the mental health of you and mental health of others, because in essence you're rejecting negative emotions, which is half of the human experience. But that's just throwing the word toxic on positivity, whereas toxic masculinity, it's like nuance. There's nuance to everything.
That's right. That's interesting insight. Yeah. Well, I'll be looking for that video. Be interesting. So what's next for you? What are we looking at here on the horizon with your new structural therapy, degree? And how are you implementing this? Where are you going to be putting yourself to work besides coming here and still helping us create great content?
Yeah, so I'm actually just now waiting for my massage license to come in. It takes a couple weeks. I did all the tests, fingerprints, background check, all that. Once I get that, then I already have an opportunity over at, it's called the Tampa Bay Sports and Medical Massage.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
That's the website that I actually found just learning more about neurosomatic, like doing some read-up.
My girlfriend works there.
Oh, okay.
My girlfriend works there.
Yes.
I'm going to be working there. So probably within a couple weeks, start working there. Start, working with client, and then do that for a couple years, get experience, and then start my own,
maybe have your own
clinic
deal
with everything. And then on top of that, dive more into the online realm, doing more videos, eventually, starting with the hiatal hernia program, get more value out to people so they can, work on healing themselves inside. I also, I see myself as really here for a reason, and I've really connected with that purpose especially the last couple of years. And I do see the importance of titles and credentials in all this. So I am to take a break maybe later this fall or later next year, start my PhD.
Yeah.
Just because, I see individuals in the health and fitness space that are considered leaders, and not to throw any names.
No, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So
if you don't have a PhD attached to your name, you're not worthy of even
having a conversation. So like when I want to have a conversation, and I'm not going to say a debate, but when I want to have a conversation of two differing ideas, and I'm speaking to this person, and they have a PhD and I don't, immediately like, oh, what's your credentials, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. If I start spitting facts and getting them triggered, they're going to immediately hide behind their degree. And then also the perception of the public is like, oh yeah, he has a PhD. He doesn't. PhD, of course. So like I'll level that playing field with the PhD and be like, okay, yeah, big deal. You ain't hiding behind your degree now. now let's actually talk about what we're talking about.
Yeah, let's get over the letters after our name.
Let's get over the letters after the name.
And get after it.
And so I do see the value in that. So I'm going to, look into pursuing that soon. But so, I
could be having a conversation about parenting with a guy who has a PhD in something that has no connection to parenting, and people look at his wisdom as like, oh, that's it's like, dude, I'm the one with the kids. You're gonna take this guy's advice? He doesn't even know what he's doing with a diaper over here. He doesn't even know how to raise a child, or how to have a difficult conversation with a kid, how to discipline, how to love on a kid, how to fall asleep in bed with your kid at the end of a long day, like all this stuff. Don't get me going on that, because that's life experience matters, and it means something. And you can be well read and be highly educated, and that's where it ends. And I used to train with people like this who had more let's just say more appealing credentials as trainers or coaches. Like, they had more education than I did, but they also had no personality, and the clients hated working with them because of how they operated. They just did not enjoy it.
They didn't know how to communicate. They have all this.
They have all this information. But
they can't.
You still have to provide a good experience for somebody for an hour. They have to like you. They have to like the workout. You're sitting there over there with a blood pressure cuff trying to get them to do their neck posture properly, and all they want to do is like play around on a medicine ball a little bit. It's like, dude, wake up. Anyway, dude, this was great. Really enjoyed it. Obviously, we went in a million different directions, but I knew that we would. A lot of value, obviously, in this 2-part episode. Thank you so much for your time. You have a fun day of filming ahead of you with Ashley, and with, of course, with Steve and Jared behind the cameras. And so we always love having you here. You're one of our brothers, long-time friend, and we hope to just continue the relationship, of course. So thanks again for being on the show. Maybe we won't wait 5 more years before we have you on for a 3rd time. All right. So appreciate you coming in nice and early for today. This is great. Listeners on Strong by Design, thank you so much. As I said at the start, no doubt we were going to have a great conversation and go off all over the map, but there's so much value, so many good takeaways, I think, for you with somebody like Zach. And, he has a wealth of knowledge, and for a 29-year-old, geez, I wish I was as brilliant and good looking as this guy was when I was 29. I'd be even further along in life right now. So, please hit that 5 stars if you would, wherever you're listening to us, or leave a review. We would love that. And share this episode, or part 1 and part 2, with a friend or a family member, somebody that you can think of in your life that would benefit from some of the things we've talked about today. And we would just really appreciate that very much. That's what helps the show grow and reach more people. So thank you in advance for that. We'll be back on Wednesday, as always, with another episode here on Strong by Design. You have a wonderful rest of your day, and God bless you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.